Hello, we'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Way Forward broadcast. I'm joined here with Pastor Jason Plummer, or at least the icon of Pastor Jason Plummer. Oh, there he goes. There he goes. So, we are here doing a special episode where we're going to deal with some white supremacy. And it's interesting that he doesn't want to show up on this show. The white guy doesn't want to show his face.
Can you hear me at all?
We can hear you, but we can't see you. I don't know what the deal is.
I don't know what the deal is. My camera is on, but it's not on. So
yeah, that's what they all say.
And maybe this is appropriate, right? We're talking about white supremacy. I just need to hide myself, you know? I need to stop.
Oh, man. I don't know. Do you want to disavow or do you want to avow white supremacy?
I want to completely disavow white supremacy with no hesitation.
Okay.
I can't even get my
that kind of show. All right.
I can't. Can you see my cool
speech, plain speaking?
All right. All right. Well, if my camera starts to work, I'll put it back on. Otherwise, my bad. Otherwise, I'm going to take a back seat to Erskin Avatar tape.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, let me go ahead and give a proper introduction for those of you who are out there. You guys be watching us perhaps on Facebook Live, or you might be watching us on YouTube, the international audience. And for those that are far and beyond, we appreciate your support of this show, at least your viewership of the show. And it's always good to hear from you guys, both during the show and after the show. And so we welcome those comments. We're still, I guess we could say, Jason, under review of last week's episode, because I was told that we missed some things on the Breonna Taylor situation. And not being those who are knee-jerky in our reaction to things, we wanted to simply come back and say that we are reviewing all the information that has been sent to us in the last week and wanting to make sure that we report accurately as the best we can. And so we're going to come back and talk about Breonna Taylor a little bit later. And so I'm excited about the fact that you guys are giving us so much good information out there. Jason's here this morning.
All right.
Let's see. It's put up or shut up time. We either got to kick you off the show or. Oh, sorry. He's going to show up today. Look at that.
I'm going to show up. I'm here.
Did you kill the fly?
I'm here for the white supremacy discussion. Let's do it.
Okay. You're going to show up for the white supremacy discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways.
Couldn't have a show without you. It's kind of like Scooby-Doo.
Couldn't have a show without, yes. All right. I'm ready. Breonna Taylor, we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, I was just saying that we're still under review on some of the documents and information we have. We have questions, we have concerns, we have gaps in the story.
Yeah. I think the AG for Kentucky just released or is about to release that information. I'm really interested to read.
You want to see that
and take a look at that and see what's going on. I got some questions. You and I talked about some inconsistencies among the police report that I would love to venture out a little bit more and see what's going on with that. And hey, you know, if the police screwed this up or messed this up, I want to be the first to say, look, we got to take care of that. A young lady lost her life after a mishap like that. If not, then we got to figure out what did go down and how it went down. So I'm glad people have told us that, hey, y'all need to look into this a little more. And so that's pretty cool that people are talking to us like that.
You guys for that.
When I received that, those who are watching, who had dropped on a conversation with Erskin about us potentially not getting it all right, I really appreciate you reaching out so that we can search it more. That's pretty cool.
And what I would say about that is people reaching out in the right way. Because you can disagree with somebody or believe, but extremely disagreeable.
Yeah.
In the way that you go about doing that. And so people said, hey, have you considered this fact? And have you considered that? And, you know, being able to go back and forth and allow info to be processed. And then also the way that it was done, I just want to go ahead and say this, hopefully the way that we can do things, they assume the best of your intentions.
Yeah.
Maybe that you got some things you didn't report all of it or came to an incomplete conclusion about things, but
Yeah.
they assumed that we didn't have certain bits of information,
Right.
which we admit, like we're still waiting for some things to come out.
Yeah.
And they assumed that we may have overlooked some things, not willfully, but just as a result of not having, first grade information.
What's neat about that conversation you're having is it seems like Grace gave the benefit of the doubt. Instead of canceling us out, instead of just writing us off, it sounds like they were, hey, look, try this other angle or try this information, and actually took the effort to send you some stuff to look at. I think that's just great dialogue, and kudos to those guys. I mean, that's just that's good stuff. Good stuff. Good people.
So appreciate that. You want to talk a little bit about the Lakers, or is that a dead subject?
What?
Are we done?
I mean, it's the Lakers. It's the Lakers to lose, right? I mean, I don't know. Miami's going to do a whole lot. I'll be honest with you. I was trying to watch the baseball playoffs until the Cubs got swept by the Marlins, and then the Cardinals won one against the Padres, and the Padres came back to win. And I swore to myself, if the Cardinals advance in the playoffs, I'm going to stop watching baseball altogether. I'm done. If the Cubs get swept by the Marlins and the Cardinals go on, I'm like, nah, I'm just done. But thankfully, the Cardinals lost, and the whole National League Central Division's out, which is what we kind of figured. So I've kind of been not watching the finals with basketball as much. And then Nick Foles, Nick Foles for the Bears does what he does. Comeback kid.
Fighting Foles.
The Fighting Foles. I don't think we should start him. I think we should just get down by 21 points every game and just let him come back and win every time. So put Mitch as the starter and just let Foles come back. That seems to what he thrives on. Like, that's what he does. So
he's a comeback kid for sure.
Yeah, and a good man. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you much about the Lakers.
Conviction.
Yeah, I can't tell you much about the Lakers. I know Ethan and I watched, was it last year before LeBron James was able to recount like the whole last 2 minutes of a fourth quarter from memory. And it just reminded me how impressive that man is in basketball. So like a photographic memory of the game. I thought that was intense. It even stopped Draymond Green's from talking. he even had to stop talking. So it was good. Otherwise, no. So you have to you and Justin will have to update me on the Lakers.
Well, Justin's a big Laker fan, and he's feeling it these days because the Lakers are up 2-0, and it looks like the Heat are just dead in the water. They've lost two of their best players.
Yeah. I don't know how the Lakers lose this one. I don't know how they. Anthony Davis is Anthony Davis. LeBron's hot, always hot in the postseason. I don't know. Yeah. Hey, good job. Lakers won the championship in the bubble. It's good.
Well, I'm gonna and respect, the legacy of LeBron. He probably will end up, and I would say probably even already.
What'd you say? You broke up that last part.
I said he has the greatest career in NBA.
Yeah, I think you broke up for a reason. That last part was a little sketchy, but that's all right. We'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Hopefully we can get back on here long enough to do a show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But better than Jordan? I mean, not at all. His ceiling has not, but the length of time that he's greatness status is impressive.
Yeah. Yep. He's top 3 of all time for sure. Top 3 of all time. Can't argue that. He's impressive.
There's GOAT longevity. There's GOAT just peak ability. And I would suppose, both of those players check those boxes to some capacity.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Anyway.
Good for him.
Should we get into our subject matter for today?
I want to get into our subject matter for today. Let's
You're
talk
excited.
about white. Hey, we're talking about white supremacy. Let's do it.
Yes. There we go.
You want me to put my icon on? I can. You good, bro? You keep breaking up on the video, like you're like it's lagging or something. I had to refresh mine to get it to work. So, but there you go. All right. Well, it looks like it is the Jason Plummer Show for a second until Erskin gets back on here. Happy birthday to my brother Erskin, who doesn't look 43 at all. If I'm not mistaken, that's what you are, right? 43?
That is me and Chadwick Boseman, 43.
That's right. You don't look one bit 43, bro. You look good. You look good. I gotta ask, because I think I don't know if I can ask this or not. I hope I can. It is my impression that black men age well. You guys look good in your old age. You look good in your old age. There's a lot of things working for you. Like, I think black men pull off bald really well. White people look like chemo patients when we go bald. Like we're battling a sickness or something. Black people look sharp.
It's just a style.
It is, but I think certain people pull. Like, I don't think. I think Asian culture, old men age well, but they look better with the half bald. I think black men can pull off
half bald in the Fu Manchu.
Yeah, black men can pull off full bald and still look pretty good. Look really good. White guys and bald, I don't know.
Well, let's think. There's probably been some white guys that have pulled off.
I don't know. Like Jeff Bezos is bald, right? He's got a lot of money to help him out. So I mean, I don't know if that looks good or not. The money looks good, but I'm not sure that looks good. I'm trying to think of who looks good bald. Come on, put a white guy out there. Even Mr. Clean looks a little weird. And you know what? Also, like bald and ripped. I mean, what do you think of a white guy who's bald and ripped? Like, what's the first thought that comes to your mind? What do you think? Maybe we should put that out there for our commentators. Do white men pull off bald as they get older? I'm not the impression that we do.
That's the majority of
That's the majority of what?
MMA fighters.
Yeah. MMA fighters, yeah. And all kinds of people. I just don't think that white men pull it off as well. I think and you got the whole, I mean, you're not even balding at all. I mean, you got a full head of hair. This is years of ministry right here. I gotta comb it forward. And I've got the luxury of being fat and bald. So I'm in all kinds of shape, bad shape. You look like you're still 21 years old. So kudos to you, man.
I'm trying to get facial hair so I don't look like I'm 21.
I can grow some facial. I can get a beard going. That's where the most hair is, right there. I got hair everywhere I don't want hair. I want hair up here, but there it is. You look good. So 43, you look good. 43 is the new 33,
Well,
right? For you?
it is what it is. Terrence reminded me that it is black and women, but black men and women who need to be included in this conversation. I think he's right. Beyonce,
Yeah.
she's preserving well. I mean, I've seen her
Actually,
on some recent series.
I think of all the women in the world, I think Asian women age extremely well.
True.
I don't know what it is, if it's their diet, their lifestyle, but I think of all the women I can think of, I know personally, if I were to say who look really good aging well, I'd have to say hands down, Asian women seem to age really, really well.
Men, you just kick Asian men out.
No, I think they age well, but I would actually probably contend. I'd say black men age well. Yeah, Asian men age well. I guess so. I just don't think white men age well.
This is our super unscientific who ages well.
That's right. It's your birthday. Like, you one up now.
Scientific.
There's a great contrast on the screen about how black and white men age well. You look really good. I'm working through it.
Well, you know what? Part of that is you're a pastor.
Right. Yeah. I've had some years taken off. Yeah.
There studies have been that it's going to add some years to your life.
Yeah. No, it's good. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing to see how cultures and different people and cultures age. It just shows a lot. Tenacity and perseverance and good health, things like that. It's good. So long live Erskin.
Well, here we go.
Here we go. Let's do it. 18 minutes in, we got to get to it,
Let's
man.
get this off the screen.
Let's do it.
Even though my thing is scrolling, can people still hear?
You just cut up a little bit every now and then, Erskin. That's all. So your last words fade out.
Because long section here that I want to try to read.
Mm-hmm.
But let me just give some bullet points since we're coming in and out.
Okay.
I've got a whole, thing that I want to talk through, but we should be familiar with an organization called the Proud Boys, because the Proud Boys was brought up in the national debate and Donald Trump, in which Chris Wallace, the model of white supremacist, one of the the now famous statement.
Erskin, you're cutting in and out quite a bit.
By.
I'm sorry, bro. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
yeah, I was just trying to make sure I was communicating.
Yeah.
But the famous statement, "Stand back and stand by," now famous statement, was issued by the president in his lack of disavowing white supremacist groups, leading to the opening of Proud Boys paraphernalia and merch phrase "Stand back and stand by," and further statements by white supremacist groups saying, "We are standing and we are ready."
Yeah.
Was it a dog whistle for white supremacist groups, or was it a slip of the president, or was it just some classic misunderstanding by the American public? Who knows? But Gavin McInnes, whose name we should be familiar with, is known as the founder of the Proud Boys, an ideological group that took roots in the 1990s I'll go over some of the, they imbibed of a man by the name of Charles Murray, who was working in conjunction with Richard Herrnstein. You probably don't remember those names, but you might remember that in 1994, called The Bell Curve, or ideology of the bell curve, was that basically made the suggestion, maybe scientifically, in which white people were at the top of the bell curve, ethnicities were down below that on the bell curve. Ideal picture of intelligence, strength, ingenuity, creativity, all those different things. And then down the bell curve, there slid different groups of people on that bell curve. The class struggle that then results as a result of the fact that other ethnicities and groups can, these race struggles of those who are inferior to white people. Now, the research was invalid and has been debunked many times, but since it had some research, there are many people who imbibed it. Pat Buchanan started saying very pro what I would consider to be the ideology of white genocide associated with that time period. Moving forward, Gavin McInnes started this called the Proud Boys, who consider themselves to be Western chauvinists, who adamantly deny any connection with the alt-right, although it's interesting when you see some of the places they both show up, i.e. Charlottesville, and some of the things that they end up doing, i.e. Portland. I'm just going to go through a couple of bullet points here. There's 4 statements of initiation for the Proud Boys, and we could get those. I think I want to keep it PG in this episode here, but you have to show it. You have to dominance in society as one of the first pillars, saying that you're a Western chauvinist, and just white greatness in society. Second thing that you have to do is demonstrate adrenaline control. They basically kind of beat up on you for a little bit to show if you can maintain and control yourself. You have to pretty much disavow women to a certain extent. And then the 4th degree, you need to get involved in a fight and beat somebody up for your cause. Or, as some of their literature says, kick the crap out of Antifa. They don't start fights.
They're there to finish them.
Yeah. Proud Boys took off in their prominence after the last presidential election. They have over 20,000 followers on of 2017, and so that's their noted members. This is just one in terms of some of the things that they have written and some of the things that they espouse. One statement, and I believe this is by Gavin McInnes, said if the Proud Boys were pressed on the issue, I guarantee like 90% of them would tell you something along the lines of Hitler gas the Jews. Now they go on and speak very disparagingly about Muslims as a rapist culture, blacks as an inferior culture, and white genocide that's taking place. So that's those guys, a presidential cycle and the presidential election that disavowed this. Now, later on, Sean Hannity, I did find this. Speaking with Sean Hannity, the president said, let me be clear again. I condemn all white supremacists. The Proud Boys, I don't know much Proud Boys, almost nothing. but I do condemn that. And so we do want to pray for the president, and we do want to pray for his family, and in that regard, for their health and quick recovery. Wanted to say that there. But this weird association that happens between white supremacist groups and the president, we're hearing about the Proud Boys and other white supremacist groups. What do you want to say about that before I start asking you some questions? And I know you're not a white supremacist. No, I'm not asking you the questions as though you've got to support or substantiate their claims. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, how does that land on you as a white man in this society? When you hear those things, I've heard some of those things in arguments that I'm reading about in white supremacist groups and churches, in the church that I go to.
Yeah.
And after looking into this a little bit more, I want to kind of drill down into some of those discussion people who have repeated some of these ideologies. But that notwithstanding, I want to just hear how that lands on you and what your response is to it.
I wish the president would have been adamantly clear. Like, look into the camera, not even look at Joe Biden, but just look at the camera in that heat of the moment. Just said, look, that's absolute nonsense. I disavow any kind of connection to white supremacy or groups or alt-right or anything like that, and just make it perfectly clear. The problem is he just never does that. So we talked a little bit earlier in the week, and I said, man, there are times when I feel like I can maybe vote for President Trump, because I'm so terrified of what the progressives are doing with this Marxism and that's a real thing. This socialistic idea coming in, and the lack of I wouldn't say lack of the emboldenment they have against Christianity, progressive left. They are emboldened to kill Christianity. So I look at that and I say, man, that freaks me out. Maybe I can vote for Trump because just to keep him off of that. And then this nonsense just comes back and says, I can't do it. I can't support that because if he doesn't, what happens when he gets in there as a lame duck president and he's not really disavowing this white supremacy nonsense, and all these groups begin to flourish under his leadership? We're both strung out, right? Because they don't like black people and they don't like white people who like black people. So, I mean, that's it. That's just how it is. And so I'm concerned that he doesn't just come out and pound it and then actually back it up with some kind of enforcement of something that says, look, these are terrorist groups. We need to get rid of them. They're just as much as a terrorist group as Antifa is. And we need to get rid of that. It's a cancer to our society. He don't do that. And so when we're having discussions with, my parishioners and my congregation and my community members, I got to just politely kind of bring that up, say, guys, look, I know you're all for the American way, but we cannot say that any form of white supremacy is part of the American way. Like, we cannot validate that. We can't. And the people I live with and work with, they honestly don't, but they look at that as a smaller issue. Like, that's another issue. The same way I think that people try to look at, you can't just be a one issue voter or something like that. That's how they kind of look at it. And I said, you can't weigh all issues the same. You just can't do that because they're not. And so that's concerning to me when I hear him do that. The other issue I have is I don't know, as I began to look into Proud Boys a little bit, I don't even think their main thrust is white supremacy, though. I don't think that's their main thrust. Their chairman right now is Enrique Tierro, who is a Cuban. And if you look at Enrique, I honestly thought he was an African American when I first looked at him. I didn't know his name. I saw a picture of him. I would have sworn he was African American, but he's Cuban. And I began to read a little bit of his story, and I began to read the director of Proud Boys out in LA and his story, and I'm starting to see a common trend, this idea of Western chauvinism, I really think that is their main thrust, and why the president is not as quick to disavow them. I think when you look at the 4 tenets about how to get into the group, right? The whole idea of you got to take a beating, right? That's a very chauvinistic type thing. When you've got to declare utter loyalty to this group of people and their ideology, that's a very chauvinistic thing. The sexual self-gratification denial, whatever you want to call that, whatever that is, that's a very chauvinistic thing. And then going into fight and combat, that's a very chauvinistic thing. And I'm looking at the 4 tenets, and I'm looking at what they stand for, and it makes perfect sense why white supremacists want to kind of flock to this idea, because they hold the same kind of tenets. They just specialize more, are specifically into race, where this group is specifically into an over-caricature of masculinity, a wrong view of masculinity. They go on to say that inside of their platform that women are generally lazy, and that men are the ones who really build society. That's a very chauvinistic thing. They refer to themselves as a men's drinking club. Again, all this kind of fits in this really really worldly view of what a man is supposed to be and be like. And then of course you throw in the race in there, and you've got this not only male dominance, but you got this specific male dominance. And then they throw in, of course, the white supremacy part of it. And so as I began to look into them and see that, I think this is what happens. This is what happens when, I remember 20 years ago, sitting in my college foyer having a conversation with feminists, and they're talking about all these things that are pretty much demasculating men, and that's pretty much what they're doing. And I remember telling them, if you demasculate men, if you continue on this path and continue this idea and build a culture of demasculating men, one of 2 things is going to happen. One, the men become very passive and disengaged, and we see that side of it. But there's another beast to this thing that you cannot control, and they will not become passive; they'll become violent. And this is an unregenerate heart view of masculinity, and they will go to the other side, and you're going to see men rise up, so to speak, and counter feminism, not with logic or reason or sympathy or theology. Even you're going to see them counter with violence, because that's the way that unregenerate heart is wired. And I see this group, and I also see other groups very much like it. The 3%ers are very similar to this. And there's even some of this on the black side, right? Have you paid attention to the NFAC, the Not Effing Around Coalition from Georgia? Have you?
The guys with the guns.
Yeah. So now they allow women, I think, in their group, but that is a very male-dominated, alpha male-ish type organization that flexes muscle, and so you see it happening there. And so I'm starting to see this. Obviously, they are connected to white supremacy, because, I mean, McKennis makes it very clear on some of his views. But I also see this primarily as this kind of over-caricature of masculinity, chauvinistic push against feminism and its ideologies. And so I'm not excusing the president by all means, but I'm wondering if he looks at that group primarily through those lens and sees it that way.
I got a question. I'm just going to go ahead and say I don't believe the president. Because
disavowing it?
No,
I don't believe him. No, I don't believe him.
He's had many chances to disavow, and he was asked a direct question, and he couldn't answer the direction. He hadn't been able to answer that direct question. Spin for damage control when you then come back to the question, but then you say in the answer of your question, and here's, I'm willing to take people at their word. Maybe he just has no idea. But then when he says these words, I don't know about the Proud Boys, almost nothing, but I condemn that. I just don't believe he doesn't know who they are.
No, no. I come on. The president is a bit of a chauvinist. I mean,
The president is briefed on everything that is going on in our country, and he has highest level of intelligence of
right.
anybody in our country related to all these different groups that are out there. And for him not to know anything about the Proud Boys, almost nothing, I
Yeah.
think you virtually lied.
But then you also have his own attitude towards. I mean, this man is publicly grabbed women's genitalia. He's made it very known that how he objectifies women. If you look at the 4 tenets that get into the Proud Boys, I mean, he's 70-some years old, so I don't know if he's giving a licking or taking a licking or not. But I can see him floating those 4s like, yeah, when I was your age, I could do something like that. I could be that. I mean, I'm not trying to be overly critical, but he's a bit of a chauvinist, and that's why I think that I'm trying to be polite, right? I'm trying to be polite, but he's got all these ties throughout his presidency to these overly aggressive men, and they're always connected to chauvinism and white supremacy. Like they go hand in hand, and he can't get away from them. And then, of course, what does he do when he's his first week in office? Was it Steve Bannon he puts in his cabinet? I mean, can you make a clear statement about where you stand on things? I mean, come on, man.
Well, they later had a disagreement or a falling out. He's been removed.
Yeah, that's because that's because when you have somebody as radical as Bannon inside of your cabinet, you cannot escape his history. For one, that's keep getting brought up, and the guy just can't keep his mouth quiet. He just can't. And you can't be president of the United States and have a guy like that. Can't do it. Can't do it. So
here's my question.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe a disservice when we start slapping labels on people, because then we can give them a label and then we don't have to listen to anything that they have to say. For instance, I can do this to you. If I say, hey, Jason, you and I are having a substantive discussion about racism in America, but I don't like what you're saying and I don't like your tone, and so you're a racist. If I call you a racist, that's bad. That's so bad that I now no longer have to listen to anything that you have to say. If I say, hey, such and such person is a white supremacist, man, hey, we're off the boat. We're off the ship. We can't listen to that. We can't, listen to any of those views or parse any of what's being said. If you say me, I'm a Marxist, cultural Marxist, based on what it is that I'm kind of describing as some of the issues that are being faced. Now, it's kind of a dog whistle. Now, white America no longer has to listen to a black person who is a Marxist, because they already know cultural Marxism is bad. That's associated with Black Lives Matter. We don't want anything to do with that. And so, I mean, there's all these dog whistles that are going out these days, and labels that we slap on people without actually having to deal with the problems that people are facing and get in the places where the gospel is going to make transformative changes in people's lives. How helpful do you think these labels are at helping people or hindering people from thinking through what the actual issues are?
I think I think labels help in some ways because it helps you organize a set of beliefs. Not that I call you a racist, right? It's that if I start listening to you talk and I start watching you make decisions and you begin to act accordingly to a set of beliefs, then in my mind, I can say, oh, those look like racist tendencies or white supremacist tendencies or chauvinist tendencies. So in my mind as a pastor, as a Christian, when I see that, I know what I'm dealing with. I don't call the president a chauvinist as a name calling thing, right? What I'm saying is I'm seeing chauvinist tendencies that tell me this is where this guy's heart is. This is where this guy's mindset is. This is this guy's worldview. No different when I look at the Not Effing Around Coalition and I start to read their platform, right? Now you can label them. They told you in their statement, we're not a protester, we're not a dissenter. We are essentially, the government's called them a militia. We're not we're not here to sing, we're not here to do this. That helps me organize where their thought process is coming from, so that when I begin to engage them, I know how to talk to them. I don't believe the culture thinks that way. What we've done with these categories, these are name calling, cancel culture categories that we just start shooting out there to shut you down, But the church can't operate that. Christians cannot operate that way, because when I start listening and paying attention to what they're saying, and I start to organize their information in my mind, I'm asking God, okay, now how do I speak to this worldview? How do I begin to break down this worldview that's not godly, and then insert the gospel so that we can bring kingdom wisdom here? Because the NAFC and the Proud Boys and the 3%ers and the president all need God's wisdom, God's word to come in and intersect their worldview, because it's off. It's really off. So on the one hand, labels help categorize information. On the other hand, the culture likes to take those and cancel you out with them and to shut you down. Whereas the church needs to take those labels and say, okay, look, if this is what their belief set is, I need to know that so I can bring the gospel to that.
Right.
That's my
probably even in church culture, and that's a good word, brother. I find that even in church culture, it's difficult to even really know what people believe about something until you actually talk to them about what they believe. Because the classic example is a Baptist. I'm a Baptist.
Yeah.
Okay, so I believe in water immersion, I believe in the gifts of the Spirit, and I believe in this, and I believe in prosperity. It's like, wait a minute, whoa.
Yeah.
At some point, you're not a Baptist anymore.
You're not a Baptist anymore.
And so until I actually talk to you about what it is, you have.
I got that.
Thinking,
I got that
Baptist.
all the time. I mean, when I go to church, we got such a spectrum of beliefs inside the church that we have to have a class on what do Baptists believe to help us understand what is sincere to us. And you also see it in church culture, because people are taking Baptists out of their names, because there's a lot of confusion on what a Baptist is. When I was up north in Wisconsin and I told people I was a Baptist pastor, they thought I handled snakes. I'm like, no, this brother don't do snakes at all. Like, if handling a snake was required to be in church, I ain't never stepping foot in the church. I hate snakes. I run as fast as I can and scream like my daughter when I see a snake. I want nothing to do with it. So they had a huge misconception about who I am just by the label of Baptist. So some of the solutions to them then is, hey, let's just take Baptist out of the name. I'm like, well, no, why don't we just clarify what a Baptist is? And I think that's for our church and a culture. Yeah. Same thing with these belief sets that are out there we're dealing with between the Proud Boys and I mean, it's the media locked in on the white supremacy part. I mean nailed, like rode right into that. And I completely missed the whole male chauvinist part, which I thought would have been just as valid of a discussion. What's the hot topic right now? It's not feminism. It's racism.
Or militia groups that are out there.
Or militia groups that are out there. Yeah. Particularly white militia groups, because I'll be honest with you, the NFAC is the only black militia group I know of. Unless you know of others. I don't know of.
Speed on my black militia groups, to be honest with you.
Well, they were supposed to be a new sect of the new.
Sorry if that disappoints our audience there.
Right.
If you're black and you're in a militia group and you want to put the name of who you're associated with there, then
they did not want to be connected to the Black Panthers. Like that's what a media group thought they were, and they came out and corrected that real fast. They're not the Black Panthers. There's something else. So they're their own black militia. The only one I know of. So maybe you can do some research and find out if there are more out there whenever you get back to us.
What just happened?
I just want to go on record that I am not canceling Erskine out and exerting my white supremacy at this point. This is a technological issue. You just lost camera? Yeah, you there. There you are. There you are.
There you go.
There you go.
So I want to ask another series of questions. I think that's a good analysis there. It's good to hear your thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm.
But in reference to white supremacist groups, the whole notion of white genocide, obviously Pat Buchanan, one point a presidential candidate, and other groups that have legitimized some of the ideology of white supremacy in our country, leading to the backlash and the back and forth, at least in these racial discussions. Do white supremacist groups own businesses in the United States of America? Do white supremacist groups or in community or and do white people legitimacy and status within our culture? I think you would probably answer to all of those questions and more along those lines that yes, they do.
Yeah.
If they do, here's my thinking. When that bumps up a racial component, I'm a black man to apply for a job, you're a white business, but you're a white supremacist.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to get the job or going to be a barrier that is going to stop me from getting that job based on my race?
Yeah, no.
Undeniably, I would have to.
Hey, look, don't underestimate the artery of white supremacy in this nation, or the white supremacy hold. So many people connect white supremacy to the Ku Klux Klan, and kind of just gauge how strong white supremacy groups are based on the Klan membership and the Klan influence, and that's just not wise. When I was going to school in the South, and I had some friends, and I would talk to some of my white friends, there was a thought. There's always this underlining thought as you talk to these guys that the South will rise again, so to speak. That there are well-connected people who are in political offices, who own corporations, who do different things, who hold these kind of neo-fascist white supremacist views, and who are willing to fund things and exert their influence in things. And that's not just in the South. You go to the East Coast, and it's pretty strong there too. And if you go to the North, it's strong. It's just not necessarily towards African Americans as much as it is, say, the Hmong or the Asian culture. And then the further north you go in the rural communities, it really don't matter to some degree what race you are. So don't underestimate the artery. And I say artery, not a vein. It's a lifeline that runs from coast to coast. That there are undercurrents of people who in positions. And if black people try to apply for a job, that will have an influence. And I think also what I understand is I've talked to these folks over the years. They're willing to take Asians and Hispanics over black people to a certain degree. So it's a very much a front against the African American culture. It's weird because I'd ask them, I'd ask like, well, so if an Asian guy graduated from MIT and a black guy graduated from MIT and a white guy, obviously the white guy would get the job first and foremost under these particular people. Who's next? And the black guy wouldn't be considered. The Asian guy, of course, because he's smart and he's timely and he holds down a job and he does all these other things and he can actually contribute to the cause. Wow. Really? And that's,
yeah.
That's kind of the thinking. So, again, I'm not going to that's not the entire South. That's not the entire East Coast. I'm just saying that white supremacy thinking is stronger than you think. It's more ingrained than you think in certain businesses and areas, and it legitimizes their views because they've got money and they've got status and they've got position.
Yeah. And, there's so many different ways that I could go with this, but a couple of weeks ago, I think my wife was at church and she walked into the office. She was trying to get something from the ministry and had to go to the office and walked in, and there were some members of the church who were having a discussion that was similar to some of the things that we've talked about on this, that came across as just a little snippet that she heard. A very white supremacist type of ideology was being espoused from into some of the younger, or at least one younger church, I think a teenager, college student, and just trying to get them to buy into this ideology of why Black people are the way that they are and why they're repressed and why this racial tension that's going on. And she caught that much of the conversation in just that snippet of it, and automatically they kind of buttoned it up.
No.
Got quiet, and we're trying to cover their tracks and saying, this is some conversation, and we disagree, but then we end up agreeing on things, and it was just kind of a nervous thing, and she just felt completely awkward in that situation, and just like there was going on there that wasn't supposed to be going on there. Like she walked in at the wrong time, right time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I would just say I probably spot on when you talk about the artery of white supremacist ideology. I don't think that exists just solely in the workplace, and solely in some of our cultural currents. I think that exists also in the church. But when I say that, I don't really have pastors that respond to that very favorably. I'm not trying to agitate, but I am trying to identify that.
Yeah.
Just slapping a label on something. This is the course of action that we're going to go down. Dial that back and say, here's anti-gospel tendencies that are found in white supremacists or any supremacy group that cannot be allowed to exist in our thinking if we're going to be the people that God is.
What's funny is all they have to do is start preaching through Acts, the first 10 chapters of Acts, and you start to see God's commitment to the nations, right? We're in the middle of that right now in our church. And my Sunday message is the Great Commission mission and message of the church is Jesus is Lord of all, right? And for all. And we're going to engage again the nations. And again, and the church might even be seeing me kind of beat a dead horse here, but over and over and over again in the book of Acts, you see God's commitment to the Gentiles and the nations, and he's dealing with Peter's heart issues. He's dealing with Cornelius's heart issues, and he's going after this racial divide to unify them in Christ. Well, keep preaching on that, and then pay attention to the conversations you have with people as they begin to defend their position on things. And it gets interesting, or they start to defend what they hear in the news about the racial issues that are happening inside of our culture and why they feel the way they feel. You start to hear a justification come out, and you're like, as they keep talking, you're like, oh, brother, just stop. just stop, because this is about to get silly, just calm down a second. And you feel this compulsion to defend a piece of your heart that Jesus is probably not happy with. And instead of maybe the best words, like, you know what, I got to fix that. I don't know why I get so bent when you bring up race in the church. I don't know why I get so mad at you when you keep pounding this, like we got this problem. What, I know why. We're hitting a nerve. We're hitting we're hitting something that God's working on, and you got to be willing to say, hey, that describes me, and I got to change that. I asked the question.
Let me be clear.
Well, you cut out, brother.
Of course, the screen would go out. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your question?
I'm trying to disavow.
Yeah.
I say I want some tremendous people that I've had the opportunity to work with, and I would say white, black, from all different cultures all around the world. And so I don't want to present the case that everybody is a racist and everybody
Right.
has these racial struggles. I think maybe Robin DeAngelis goes a little bit too far in some of her identity politics. Yet
Yeah.
at the same time, I want to just talk about the fact that you and I both are kind of, behind enemy lines, so to speak. I mean, you're white, and so you can be around a group of whiteness to be able to speak.
Yeah.
Wait to come back on. Okay, I was just gonna say, to say things around you that they would never say around a black person.
Right.
Conversely,
Right.
I've also had people who have seen and felt comfortable enough with my blackness that they have said things about white people around me that they would never say around white people. And
Yeah.
so you've heard a lot of comments, I've heard a lot of comments that help us to
Yeah.
realize the reason why we need to do this show and continue to do this
Yeah.
show is because we've
Yeah.
got there's a rooted racial sin that
Yeah.
is deeply ingrained in the American culture and in our hearts that the gospel needs to deal with.
I I wouldn't say that I'm not a practicing racist. I'm not I'm not a racist in that way, but I would be lying to you if I didn't say that there are times in my heart that sin does not peer itself out, does not show itself, does not come to my thinking, does not come in, that I have to immediately take the gospel and say, nope, that's not godly, that's not what Christ wants for me, that's not a biblical worldview.
Well,
And I
correct
know,
me if I'm wrong. You were actually taught and raised to be a racist from some of the ideologies of your
yes,
parents and what they believed. Not that they
particularly
actively took out a chalkboard or anything and said, okay, this is how you
right,
become a racist. But based on some of the views that your family espouses and has, you were
yeah,
actually kind of taught to be a racist. There's this really, I think, poignant moment in the movie 42.
mhm,
Ethan and our family watched that last week. The story of Jackie Robinson. We wanted to
mhm,
give a tribute to Chadwick Boseman, one of his greatest performances there. But as we were watching that movie, there's this really poignant scene where I forget what stadium they're in. I think it's Cincinnati. And, they're going back there. One of the players is from that area. And people in the stands when Jackie Robinson.
hmm.
Waiting.
All right.
Jackie Robinson.
You're trying to talk about your boy Jackie Robinson. This is cutting out on you.
Come back. Come back. Come back. But essentially, they didn't get out a chalkboard and teach him how to be a racist. They just
Yeah,
demonstrated racism before him. And you see that moment where he's confused to fit in with everybody. He needs to join in.
yeah,
Robinson, he didn't even know anything about.
yeah. I think I know what you're saying. And yeah, there was a lot that was caught versus taught inside of
Uh-huh.
my family. Um, and then there was a passiveness too that, like, I go after it with my kids. We identify what it is and we say, nope, that's wrong. We're not going to believe like that. We're not going to think like that. That was not necessarily as strong growing up, especially on my family side in the South. There's just an expectation that you will abide by the white norm, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely caught as much taught. Yep, an idea.
all of this and through all the what's our way forward?
Our way forward is, again, okay, so even here's been my thinking about the gospel and what I'm trying to do with my kids and my church is, if we are commanded to love God with all our mind, heart, soul, and strength, and love our neighbors ourselves, chauvinism, the overcharacter of masculinity, and racism has no place in our worldview. We need to be able to identify it for what it is. I don't think we cancel out the Proud Boys. I think we go after the Proud Boys and try to give them a better view of what a man is. I think I told you this. I was wearing that shirt, "Be a Man, Preach the Gospel." We talked a little bit about that quote from H.B. Charles Jr. And I had a lady stop me in Ruby Tuesdays, an African American lady, and just tell me she really loved the shirt. She loved that identification of what a man is. Be a man and preach the gospel. So we're connecting masculinity with the gospel. And what does that look like? Well, it doesn't look like Proud Boys, and it doesn't look like NFAC, and it doesn't look like the 3%ers, and fortunately, it doesn't look like our president. Jesus is whom we're trying to be conformed into, and that's what a good man looks like. And so the church needs to disciple our men into biblical masculinity, and we need to reach our culture's masculinity. We need to offer them the better worldview than feminism and chauvinism, and that takes a lot of time and effort and work and patience, and not canceling people out just because they hold crazy views. You got to engage them. One of the ways that we're doing in our church is we started this program with helping children, and we are really looking forward to the men volunteering with these children just to help these boys who don't necessarily have really strong Christian male role models to teach them how to be a man. What does a godly man look like? And we want to use our men to help these boys see this is what it is, and have these men pray over them, and have these men teach them wisdom, and have these men share the gospel with them, and God willing transform their heart so that they'll grow up and break that cycle of chauvinism and racism and all that's coming with it, because it's following them right as they age. So the way forward for the church is, man, you've got to grab your men, and you got to grab the men of your community, and you've got to show them that God has so much of a better vision for a man than chauvinism and the Proud Boys and the white supremacists and all that nonsense masculinity. That's it's vital. It's absolutely essential.
Again, those competing stories of everybody's telling us. Some people are telling their story with violence. Some people are telling their story with, protests. Some very inflammatory words. We're telling our story, hope of the gospel.
Yeah.
And through the lens of love.
Yep. In their house, on their couch, in their backyard, at the grocery store, fishing with them, crying with them, marrying them, burying them, that kind of thing. Community.
Yeah.
Engage them, meet them where they are and go get them. They're not coming to you. And Proud Boys is recruiting. I mean, they are, especially now they're in the spotlight, they are going after our sons. They want our sons in a big way. And so is the NFAC. They want justice.
Which is funny because I have family members who are younger who buy completely into some of those ideologies.
Yeah.
The young kid, big trucks and the guns, and they're,
That's what a man is. We're ready to go out there and
scratches that itch.
Yeah. And we've got to get our boys and say, no, man, there's a way that seems right to a man that leads to death, and that leads to death. And we need to teach our boys to be wise, not this foolishness, what that is.
I like that word that you said. They're coming for our boys.
Yeah.
If we could
Yeah.
leave that as just a thought in your mind, you know, if you're a father out there, if you're a mother out there, they're coming for our sons and daughters, and the ideology of the way that our kids think about life and the way that they view things. And, you know, we may have some things worked out, Jason and I, but there's another generation, there's another culture, there's generations before us, there's generations that come after us. And with the gospel must permeate those generations, multi-generationally, as we continue forward. So this has been the way forward. It's been a great broadcast here on the Black People. Your contribution. Did I get you?
I
was going to say thank you for your contribution.
Hey, thank you for speaking with me, talking with me. This has been good.
The way forward.